Welcome to Pick Me Up, I'm Scared, the podcast.
I'm your host, Madeline.
I'm your co-host, David.
And today we are back with part 2 of our episode about AFRICOM.
Yep.
How's your week been, David, before we get into it?
We had, the gloom, May gloom, for a little while. And then, 2 days ago, it just got really fucking nice, and now it's hot as hell.
Yeah, it's 90 degrees outside, and everybody in LA is feral.
Yeah, no, the energy, it's giving manic energy a little bit.
Yeah.
For now, it's on an upswing that I really love.
Right. It's pretty fun out there.
It's pretty fun. People are having a lot of fun.
LA's really thriving right now.
LA is thriving.
Mm-hmm.
However, I get the overwhelming sense that we're all in for a crash by July.
Oh yeah. It's brutal. I bet the come down's gonna be real bad.
Yeah, it's like the entire city took Molly.
Yes. Totally. And we're gonna be in that serotonin hangover soon.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe.
Drink or take your beta blockers, people. How's your week been?
I'm trying to think if there's any new developments. I told you about falling into the pit of the LaRoucheite fake communists who were all homophobic.
Oh, yeah.
And tried to cancel me for having a big eyeliner.
You are in the pocket of big eyeliner. I have said that for years.
Big eyeliner owns me, controls me, blah, 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 blah.
I will say, the LaRoucheites used to come to where I went to undergrad all the time, and it's very ill-fitting suit guys in a forest in the Pacific Northwest. It even as a 19-year-old, I gotta say, to the LaRoucheites of the world, your marketing is not good.
I mean, they're consistently bad. So when I fell into the pit of the LaRoucheite fake communists on Twitter, I got a lot of emails of solidarity and sympathy. And my favorite email of solidarity and sympathy came from an Italian communist who was like, hey, I see you, American comrade. Just so you know, we've been dealing with these bizarre LaRoucheite fake communist cults popping up all over, specifically Italy and Europe, for decades. This is what they do. They try to infiltrate left-wing spaces and bring about right-wing social policies and agendas. And they're like, we've always long suspected that it's been a CIA plot.
There are
guys' government, but he sent me a bunch of links to CIA declassified documents about LaRouche, and then also to articles about it and to an entire book about it. So I was like, oh, it could be very interesting for us to do some sort of podcast episode about LaRouche, so everybody kind of understands this group that has been attempting to basically infiltrate left-wing political spaces forever by being like, yeah, we're just like you, and then aggressively promoting very conservative right-wing social policy.
Apparently, Lyndon LaRouche, in his time at, I want to say, CUNY? I can't remember what university he was at.
Forgot about CUNY. It was CUNY.
Was an extraordinarily popular Marx professor. Which I who, in the vein of the entire left in the 1960s, went off the fucking deep end, right? That
Yes.
seems to have been
Right, and a lot of the LaRoucheite kind of platforms now are just straight up fascism.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, what if we did Marxism with private business? And you're like, I think you're just describing fascism and not Marxism.
Yeah.
It's very, very fascinating. Anyway, so that was the most interesting thing I encountered. I'm still dealing with people sending me interesting follow-up information on it. And I'm like, this could be a good podcast episode for us to do about this kind of stuff. But I think that was the most interesting highlight. What I realized is that I'm I'm in my flop era right now.
You're flop, but
My flop era means I'm trying to focus more on my real life instead of the internet life, and then realizing that so much of my livelihood is tied to the internet that I can't escape it, and that means that my real life is actually affected by the internet. And I'm like, no, I just want to enjoy my personal life.
Yeah, I think I was telling you before, when we were talking before we started recording, I was I've gotten to this place where poor as hell, but stable and relative, things are going well.
Yeah.
And I want to say, the internet only invites chaos into your life.
It completely does. Unfortunately, I make my living on the internet. So right now, because I am ew, the internet's chaotic, my real life is so awesome. That means that poor as hell also.
Yeah.
Right. And it's really funny for all the people who think I'm like a millionaire on the internet. And I'm like, you don't even know my financial situation right now. It's fucked right now. But that's how it goes. Bouncing back. Sometimes you're in your on era. Sometimes you're in your flop era. I feel like when you're off, the only thing you need to do is just maintain.
Yeah.
Maintain, and you'll hit a good stride again soon.
I think that's like, we're getting up there in years. We're old.
Yeah. I gotta fix it. I gotta repair.
I think that's just the rest of your damn life at this point.
I want that to be the rest of it.
But I think that is extraordinarily freeing to just be like,
I need to save for my retirement, David.
yes,
This has been an ongoing source of stress in my life.
this has been.
I can't just bank on the house.
This is a generational.
This is a generational stress. Yes.
Stress.
This is millennials everywhere, the world over, stressing about our retirements.
But
It's not great right now. It's not looking good. But, it is what it is. So that's what's going on. Real life right now, very thrilling, especially in Los Angeles. Everybody is broke, though, present company included.
which is I got home last night. I went for a goddamn swim in my extremely crappy apartment pool.
So fun, though.
And was like, it does. I feel like for a brief moment you can feel like Eve Babbitts, right? Like
You gotta romanticize it.
you're like, I am, coming back from the weird Hollywood liquor store with a beer and going to the pool.
Think about it. Marx
Yeah.
was begging Engels for money up until the end of his days.
It's funny. I was just reading about this because I'm reading a book on Marx and third world nationalism.
Yes,
or
okay.
a future
for our
thing.
future conversation and the nation.
And apparently Marx, in addition to baking Engels for money, was constantly hectoring the New York Tribune for more money because they were like, you're the highest paid writer we have, and he was like, that's some bullshit. You pay me nothing. So
I like that. I respect that. Yeah, I don't know. Very, very, the vibes are interesting out in the world. Okay, so I feel like if you guys haven't followed us over on Patreon, check us out there. We're gonna do a conversation about nationalism over on Patreon.
And I gave you the what is it, Benedict Anderson thing,
Yes,
so that
and
we're not.
You're gonna read the national question.
I already have.
And then also the Marx on Ireland.
I mean, we read that, but
Yeah.
it's not long.
We'll have a good conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just like we have to have enough of a common understanding of what the other person's doing to where it's not just us talking past each other.
Yeah, exactly. So David and I, for anybody who is curious, our takes on the idea of the nation is only slightly different. Mine is that I feel like it is irrelevant and important for some places, like what we've been talking about in AFRICOM, to use as a unifying rallying cause to fight off oppression from other nations. And David is of the opinion that nationalism is always bad and it's not a path to liberation.
Well, no. Okay.
That's my summary, but
okay.
You should summarize it more. So over on our Patreon, we'll have
we'll call this the fucking preview. My opinion is that as a sort of propagandist argument that people make for their liberation, right? It's whatever, right? It is whatever. As term in the analysis of the social sciences, or in social science type analysis, it is incoherent and often leads to contradictory results, in the sense that this is in Hobsbawm's book on this, right? The objective definition of nationalism, i.e. Stalin's, right? People of common tradition and territory, yada yada yada, is question begging. And then the subjectivist one, a nation is whomever believes themselves to be a nation, is tautological.
Okay.
That's
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so that's what we're going to talk about over on our Patreon. It's patreon.com/pickmeup. I'm scared. And we got a lot of bonus content already up over there if you're looking for episodes and things like that. So that said, we're going to get into part 2 of AFRICOM. Last week, we talked about the foundation of AFRICOM, the background of American foreign policy upon which AFRICOM was founded. We talked about its role coming out of the war on terror and how the United States was seeking to secure new avenues for oil after we completely decimated the region we refer to as the Middle East. We talked about the horrific dealings of AFRICOM under Obama and Hillary Clinton in Libya. And we talked a lot about what was going on in the Congo, the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And that's going to be an ongoing thing. So where we left off was we talked about Coney 2012 as well.
One of the most bizarre,
like a fever dream in pop culture. It turned out, American government psyop campaign. Okay, that makes sense. But it really was a strikingly bizarre moment in America.
I honestly think that Coney 2012 t-shirts, which...
Yes, I'm sure there are many.
That is, give it 20 or 30 years, put that in your closet with your bootcut jeans, hold on to it.
You think it's going to be a thing?
I think it's going to come back around.
Interesting. I can see this happening.
Yeah.
It's going to be very ironic. It's going to be like having an Oliver North shirt.
Yeah, or that's like, remember the Dare shirt as like a phenomenon of, what, 10, 15 years ago?
Yes.
It's going to be that. So hold on to your Coney merch.
Well, I think that fashion trend cycles now are around 15 years. So right now, 2010 is really what's hitting.
I did see, I was at a cafe recently, and it was, I thought I was hallucinating. A man walked in wearing like a broad, flat type hat or whatever with a flipped collar on his like shirt thing, a little a scarf tied around his neck, and tall like boots.
Okay, so it's a Time Lord is what we call it.
Yeah, and I was like,
in LA, for those of you who aren't familiar, we have this contingency, this aesthetic of like psych rock 70s desert culture, I think because of our proximity to Joshua Tree. And it never really dies, but it goes through waves of like popularity. And some people in LA call them Time Lords because they're like perpetually stuck in this like 1970s aesthetic. And 2010 was a peak era for Time Lord reemergence. Everyone was a Time Lord.
I'm going to say this was I was never a Time Lord, but I was also not here. But it filtered out. This was more in he looked like he had like fallen out of the Mumford and Sons van.
Okay.
It's
usually a Jodorowsky look the way we do.
No. This was not that. I thought that was lame when I saw like the first time I saw that. I was like, ooh.
I was into the Jodorowsky thing. I was into the Time Lord aesthetic. The person I'm currently dating is like, oh, if I had known you in like 2010, I would have mercilessly mocked your giant brimmed hat.
Yeah, those hats. I have always.
I love a hat.
I once got after the Time Lord had peaked and knocked in the head by someone where like they were walking by me and just like the hat was so broad.
So it's a weapon, is what you're saying.
That it hit me, and I was like, "This
makes sense why I like it."
Because it fundamentally creates space between you and anyone around you.
It's like an umbrella.
Yeah, it was one of the stupidest I remember you in that era.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
I loved psych rock.
I'm sure, but
I think psych rock Madeline had a strong aesthetic.
You know me. I've been pushing a return to skinheads. I think that's where people are going.
Well, Coney 2012, if fashion trends stick around as we think they will, in 2 years, 2017 or 2027, we'll be ready for the 2012.
Get your
Coney 2012 ready.
Now, what was it? The nerds say the like single stitch shirts.
Oh. Yeah, vintage shirts of single stitch. Yes.
This is like fucking. You guys are fucking nerds. Fashion.
Vintage people.
Fashion. Vintage nerds.
You know what? I've been going to the bins a lot more lately, and I've been really feeling like at one with my vintage fashion community. I'm vibing on it.
I just I hear these people talk, and I'm like,
yeah,
it's a fucking shirt, man.
It's a shirt.
It's a fucking shirt.
Wow. All right,
well,
so that's where
Pony
we
2020.
We ended around Coney 2012, and today we're going to pick off with 2017, talking about what AFRICOM was up to. The bulk of our conversation today is going to be about more current AFRICOM dealings as they pertain to
Burkina Faso.
Burkina Faso. Been in the news. Lots of you guys have been asking me about it on various social media platforms. So that's going to be kind of the bulk of our convo today. But we got to get from Coney 2012 up to today. So starting off in 2017, the chief of AFRICOM then was General Thomas Waldhauser, and he ended up going to Congress to ask for increased funding. And in his testimony before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, he said AFRICOM's, quote, inadequate surveillance, poor supply chain networks, and lack of personnel, end quote, were putting U.S. interests at increased risks. And I thought this was really interesting because if you remember from our first episode, AFRICOM is full of many bungled pursuits. So I think this is like just a really fascinating insight to like U.S. military. They're like, yes, of course we're bungling all of our pursuits. The answer is to give us more money so we don't.
Which I can't remember what the proportion of the U.S. federal budget the military is, but it's like the...
Should I look it up?
Yeah, please do. Because it's like...
of the U.S. federal budget. Yes, spent on military. Thank you. Google autocomplete new. So in 2023, the U.S. military was roughly 13.3% of the entire federal budget, not even discretionary spending. So let's look up discretionary spending. Of the discretionary spending, it is 47%.
That's some...
Nearly half of our discretionary spending is just going to the military. So they're like, we need more money. That's why we've been bungling everything.
It just, like, at a certain point, like... I'm speaking now to capitalists of the world.
Yes, who are listening, definitely.
If you spend half of your discretionary budget, roughly, on something and it fails over and over...
Sunk cost fallacy. Maybe it's time to stop spending money on it and get out of there.
Close up fucking shop. Go into a different business.
Yes.
I will say, I believe something like 13% of the U.S. economy is industrial manufacturing, largely, I'm going to say, military spending.
Ugh.
Like buying all those fucking planes.
Yep. We have an episode, actually, about the U.S. military budget called, I think it's called Big Guns, starring Nicolas Cage.
Oh, sick.
Something like that.
Okay.
So if you guys want to listen to the old episode, we talk a lot about the military budget. So our AFRICOM guy is in Senate, and he's like, we need more money. And we've got another quote for him. He says, these constraints risk our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, and civilians executing activities on the African continent. He then went on to say that only 20 to 30% of the command's intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance requirements were being met due to a lack of resources. Wild. And to offset this, he's like, well, AFRICOM has had to rely primarily on private security contractors. So, David, what do you think that the chief of AFRICOM meant when he told Senate that they were using private security contractors? What's a private security contractor?
What was it? BlackRock? Was that what I think they renamed themselves a while ago.
They did rename themselves.
But it's dudes who call themselves operators.
Mercenaries
who like murder civilians. Somewhat famously, there was a trial over like a massacre in Iraq a few years ago, in which everyone got off, and I believe Trump may have pardoned the ones who didn't.
That's about right.
Yeah. It's bad.
It's bad. It's private mercenary groups who operate under the kind of umbrella of the U.S. government, but aren't actually our government, and they have hardly any accountability or oversight. And they usually, we find out years later, are responsible for just horrific atrocities everywhere they go.
And aesthetically, it's very much like a red-pilled coffee company.
Yes.
That's...
Totally. So to get an idea, though, of what AFRICOM is doing in 2017, same year, they're like, we don't have enough money, we need more money. We can take a look at what was happening in Somalia. So Washington, at the same time that this request was going in, was carrying out a campaign in Somalia because that was a central area for, again, the flow of the world's oil traffic from what we call the Middle East to the Western world. Somalia, meanwhile, had been experiencing a terrible famine, like the worst famine in its history, which was exacerbated by the USA's imperialist activities in the region over the previous few years. The USA responded to the situation by bombing Somalia in aggressive military campaigns under AFRICOM that resulted in over 300 airstrikes in total happening in the region.
And this is 2017.
This is 2017. And even as recently as July of 2024, we were still aggressively bombing Somalia under the heading of AFRICOM. So they're sending 300 airstrikes in total to Somalia and going to the government and being like, we need more money to do more airstrikes, basically.
And obviously, this is not being publicized.
It's one of those things that's out in the open for anybody to see, but it's not really talked about much. And I think that's why so many groups who are concerned about Africa in general and U.S. foreign policy in Africa are trying to get people to pay attention to this info, because it is available for everybody to know, but it's not something people know to look for. You know, so this is an ongoing issue. So in 2020, we start to see some of the results of AFRICOM's work over the past, decade and a half?
Yeah.
Almost 12 years since it was really operational. And all of this stuff that we start to see happen just reminds me of School of the Americas and WINSEC.
Yeah.
In South America.
It does seem like this is the playbook for U.S. imperialism. Is though I will say, the funny thing about it is this was also the playbook for just old-fashioned imperialism, which is it wasn't right, very rarely did imperial powers set up we have your country now. It was there's a private business.
Yeah.
And we are going to force you to do business in unequal ways. Right.
Yeah. So one of the things that we start to see happen in 2020 is that we see people who had gone through AFRICOM training on the continent pop up and start staging coups in Africa.
Okay.
The training they learned from the U.S. government.
And they have the full support of the population. Everyone loves them. And it's like a neolib capitalist paradise. It's everyone has a small business.
Yeah, it's a cottage industry.
They took out women took out micro loans from the IMF to do I think it's always they're gonna do traditional basket weaving and sell it in Etsy shops.
Yeah, something that's the Democrat liberal idea of how neo-colonial imperialism is marketed. No, so what we see is Mali is a great example of this. A colonel seizes power in a coup. It's quickly revealed he had been the leader of an elite special forces unit trained by the U.S. military under AFRICOM. So if you remember any of our episodes about School of the America or WINSEC, what really the model was for the United States there is we set up a college and we trained people how to be vicious military dictators. And then a lot of people graduated from that college, went on to be involved in coups in South America where they overthrew leadership, sometimes democratically elected leadership, very often socialist or left-leaning leadership, and installed right-wing paramilitary kind of governments that were basically client states of the United States. So we see that really what AFRICOM is doing on the continent seems to be facilitating that same kind of arrangement happening there that had happened in South America under School of the Americas or WINSEC. And we're going to see more examples of this popping up. So as this stuff starts going on, we start to see a little bit more media backlash, but only from left-wing media. So People's World, for example, famous left-wing media, they published a report on AFRICOM in 2020. And in it, they state, quote, the U.S. is now the world's only existing superpower, maintaining over 800 military bases around the globe. It is a world naval power whose navy is larger than the next 13 largest navies combined. And of course, it is the leading capitalist nation with a GDP of over $20 trillion, 99% of which is owned by 1% of the population. Citing statistics on average wages in the world's poorest continent, The Economist writes from 1993 to 2008, the average per capita income of a sub-Saharan African economy barely budged. It increased from $742 to $762 per year, measured in 2005 purchasing power parity adjusted dollars. If we exclude South Africa and I don't know how to pronounce Seychelles.
I would say Seychelles.
Yeah, Seychelles. We see a decline from $608 to $556 over the period. Meanwhile, though, People's World points out that Africa is a wealthy continent rich in natural resources. So why are its people so poor?
This is a question asked by the leader of Burkina Faso that we'll talk about later.
We will. So as they explain it, quote, it seems that the purpose of U.S. military bases is not only to exploit the gold and wealth of the African people, that's a big precursor from Burkina Faso too, but to encircle both Russia, the principal component of the former Soviet Union, and China.
The funny thing, this is the funny, like, reconstituting Russia, who got rocked throughout the 90s with, like, shock doctrine stuff. And
yes. Do you want to explain shock doctrine stuff?
Basically forcing a government's economy into, like, intense liberalization very quickly.
Yes. Due usually to some sort of shocking sudden event, which in the 90s in Russia would be the collapse of the USSR.
Right.
Or
like,
collapse, air quotes, the intentional dissolution.
But if you were, like a Fukuyama-ass end of history motherfucker, like, there must have come a point where you were like, actually, we do kind of need, like, we need a bad guy. Like, we need a mother, and so we're just going to do Russia. Like, Russia's still bad.
Russia's still bad, even though you're no longer a communist place.
Right, their capital, like, this is not ideological. Now it's just like...
It's just like, we hate you.
Yeah.
And they do push back against American imperialism.
Yeah, but it's not, like, there's not... Because they want to do their own. Like, they're... It's not...
I don't know. The
it's
Russia
not...
thing, they are... I have complicated feelings about the Russia thing that we probably can't get into in a single episode. And I have complicated feelings about people in the way we use the term empire and what imperialism means. Like, words have specific definitions.
Put it this way, right? I don't think you have to be like, wow, I love Putin. Oh my God.
I love Putin. No.
Russia's international political policies are great. To be like using them as a bad guy in order to further U.S. hegemony has had disastrous, catastrophic consequences for people all over the world.
Yes, yeah. And the United States often is far more of an aggressor in our dealings with our political enemies than we like to paint ourselves out to be.
Yeah.
So this is a great example of this, right? And People's World went on to say in 2020, U.S. policy aims to capture, conquer, and exploit Africa's rich mineral deposits to further enrich and empower the monopoly capitalists and transnational corporations throughout the world. In that sense, AFRICOM recapitulates the old trading and slaving posts that had the European colonial powers established beginning in the 15th century and continuing all through the colonial period. Independence for African nations led in most cases straight into a new era of neocolonialism, where the economies of nominally free countries continue to be dominated by global corporate interests. The world seems to be on a backward plunge. Instead of aiding the fight against terrorism, AFRICOM seems to be encouraging it. It is supporting the organized assault on behalf of U.S. and international capitalism on African people and at the expense of the other working people of the world. So, 2020 left-wing publications are like, hey, this is bad. This appears to be the extension of neocolonialism. This appears to be a weird, like, soft power aggression towards Russia and China while being a hard power aggression on the continent of Africa itself. We know that we are training people who later go on to be military dictators who stage coups and overthrow these countries. We know that we are securing business interests in the region. This does not seem great. And we know that part of the motivation definitely is to, like, be a weird political aggressor towards Russia and China. Now, in 2020, when they wrote this, People's World stated that we were kind of like a unipolar global power, right? It's like they said the U.S. is now the world's only existing superpower. I would say that now that we're recording this in 2025, we're in a more multipolar kind of position. China has emerged as a very strong contender just over the past 5 years for global power, but they're not executing it in the same way the United States is.
And it's like the U.S. still constitutes like the vast amount of like resource or like
resource control and imperialism.
Yeah.
I'm very specific about how people use the term imperialism. The way people use imperialism is often incorrect, and they sometimes use it just to describe big country does things. And it's like imperialism does not mean big country does things. Like imperialism has a specific meaning that has to do with, for example, the presence of military bases.
Okay, so you're talking about like when people talk about the Belt and Road stuff, it's like fucking imperialism.
So, like, actual definitions of imperialism, usually we're talking about territorial acquisition, right? Like economic dominance, like political control that has to do with actually forming an empire, right? Building an empire, having client states, having vassal states. For example, I don't know, training military leaders to stage coups in a country and then become basically underlings for your country while ostensibly controlling a different one, that you actually control the economy of them through that new leader you trained to stage the coup. That's imperialism. Just like doing a business deal with another country, that's not imperialism.
That's obviously not. And I'm not like, right, there are countries in the world that would like to, for various reasons, resist being completely subsumed under sort of like U.S. dominance.
Yes.
Right. Russia is one of those countries.
Russia is one of those countries.
That is not because Russia is like a shining beacon on the hill.
No.
Right.
No. And this is why I say, though, like, you don't have to love Russia to acknowledge that almost everything Russia says about American imperialism and American foreign policy is correct.
Yeah.
It just is, point blank. You know, like, and also China doing business deals in Africa is not imperialism. China does not have an empire that extends into Africa. And the people who try to paint China as having an empire, they're usually talking about like Taiwan, Hong Kong, Tibet, and that just communicates a lack of an understanding of that.
The history of those places. The
history of those places, as well as what it means under Marxist ideology to have the right to self-determination within a kind of federated idea of a country, basically.
Yeah, okay.
Which we're going to talk about.
Yeah, okay. Like, you are going to be inter alia banging that drum just consistently.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Maybe you guys get to hear me and David fight over the Patreon. Just saying. Okay, so 2021, the year after all this. Something similar to what had happened in Mali happens in Guinea. So a few years prior to 2021, American Green Berets had trained a special forces unit led by someone named Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya. And in September of 2021, guess what? Doumbouya goes on to lead a coup in Guinea.
And everyone loves there are parades in the street.
Yeah.
People are like, wow, we're going to get McDonald's.
And blue jeans.
In Guinea. It's going to be awesome.
No. It's another situation where we go in and train somebody to basically be a military leader that we can work with and control more easily. And Doumbouya himself was trained under an annual military training program known as Flintlock, which was, yes, sponsored by the U.S. military. So, meanwhile, that same year, we got some more action also occurring in the Democratic Republic of Congo. A U.S. Special Forces team arrives in Kinshasa, and the U.S. Embassy says that, the Congolese government invited us there, and we're going to go to help them fight. What? If you had to guess, what's the U.S. government sending forces into the Democratic Republic of Congo to fight a big bad?
In 2020.
2021.
2021. In 2021.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Islamic extremism.
It's ISIS, baby. Yep. You nailed it. Yeah. So this is what we talked about in the last episode, if you guys remember. It's like, if you could just claim there's Islamic terrorist extremists anywhere, you can justify sending American military.
That seem to bizarrely often have U.S. manufactured weapons.
Yeah, we don't know how. ISIS always shows up with American guns, but that's not really our problem. We're there to fight him. So, one reporter for the Black Agenda Report, Kimball Musavuli, is from a town called Benji on the Congo side of the border of Uganda and Congo, and spoke about the situation in an article for the Black Agenda Report that was really informative. So Musavuli explains that there's a lake, Lake Albert, that kind of has one side on the Congo side and one side on the Uganda side. And in the mid-2000s, they discovered that there's oil there, mostly on the Congo side. So on the Congo side of the lake, licenses for oil extraction were limited to just a handful of people. But that handful of people seems to be specifically selected with key business interests in mind. And one of the people, for example, who has a license to extract oil was Dan Gentler, an Israeli Secret Service asset in Congo.
Oh, no. So you got a Mossad guy.
We got a Mossad guy there doing oil business in Congo. On the Uganda side, a French oil company called Total secured most of the licenses for oil extraction just on its own. So not great. Soon, a plan emerges to build a pipeline from Lake Albert to the Indian Ocean that would go through Tanzania, Burundi, Rwanda, Uganda, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The pipeline stakeholders predominantly also feature countries who are politically at odds with China.
Mm-hmm.
So this kind of goes into the people's role to say. It's like a lot of this seems to like be like a weird fuck you to China. Like there's all these weird kind of motives at play.
You build a road, we build a pipeline.
Right. So it's also worth noting that the United States obviously loves to blame China for our role in imperialism on the continent of Africa. Like we're always thinking it's China's fault. We're there. Everything's China's fault. And something I think about a lot is how on like the 12 points of fascism, one of them is like constructing an enemy that is both strong and weak. And whenever we talk about China, I think about this so hard because the average American is told that like everybody in China is poor. They're working like 100 hours a week. They have no rights. They're all living in like huts. They're jumping to their death out of Foxconn buildings. Never mind the fact that that's in Taiwan and it's not even like a Chinese company, whatever.
Yeah, that's right. Like,
the whole thing.
okay, I will say about like, to be fair, the people who were mad about that, I don't think they were mad at China. They were mad at Apple.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
Like, that was, which is...
But that's an American company. Isn't
yeah,
it?
and
Foxconn's an American company, isn't it?
Right, that was...
Oh, they're headquartered in Taiwan. Yeah, but they're being exploited by American corporations.
And I think that, like, it is fair to be mad at Apple.
Yeah.
For, like, in instances where Apple promotes really fucked up labor practices.
Yes, completely.
Like...
But again, the same people who are like, but Taiwan's not a part of China are the same people being like, China's doing this. And you're like, well, do you think Taiwan is China or not? Because that's Foxconn, you know, and that's Taiwan. So it's just like, it's very inconsistent ideology. It was ever convenient politically. So people want to paint, you know, China as being this simultaneously strong and weak political enemy. They're weak in that everybody there is impoverished and is a horrible quality of life, which is not true, by the way. And I think all these Americans
I know everyone knows that at this point.
I think that a lot of Americans are just learning this like this year.
Like
when Americans went on Red Note, they were like, wait, they all have beautiful penthouses and live in cities and have a good quality of life and drive fancy cars. And everyone there was like, yeah, what are you guys doing? And then there's this trend of Chinese tourists coming to the United States and posting videos about how shitty the United States is. They're just like, what the fuck? I did not expect this. And now America.
I mean, I gotta say, it's lovely to hop on a trend.
Mm-hmm.
I have to imagine that like somewhere in, you know, Shenzhen or whatever, or two people are talking to each other and they're like, dude, you know how we get more Red Note followers? We go to like Missouri. I don't know why I'm singling out.
No, they came to LAX. The video I saw was literally people in LAX being like, what the fuck? And I'm like, yeah.
LAX, I love my city so much.
I love LA. But the reason I love LA is because it is a very working class, like not fancy city. And people don't think about that. They think LA is very fancy. It is not. It is a very working class, normal city. And that's what I love about it.
It is a beautiful, beautiful place of diverse history and culture. You know, the whole fucking thing.
Yes. So.
This is the end of it.
Yeah.
Our politicians in this city, our city and state government, have really fucked our city.
Yes. No, it's true. And this is why I often tell people who come from more conservative places, like, I understand why if you come from a place where the Republican Party has been dominating everything for decades, maybe your whole life, you think that the Democratic Party is going to save you. And I always say, as somebody born and raised in California, consider me sent from your future to tell you the Democratic Party is not going to save you. It's not going to be enough. If you're standing there looking at a fork in the woods and the left is the Democratic Party path and the right is total socialist revolution now, I can tell you right now that the path on the left, the Democratic Party, doesn't get you out of the woods. It only gets you a quarter mile closer to the road. And
in the meantime, the road will be sold to a real estate developer.
Yes, exactly. But I understand that, you know, I understand why it looks better. Like, our states have more guaranteed protection to things like abortion, for example, but it's not, that's kind of it. That's as far as you get, and it's not going to be enough to actually save us from the problem. The overwhelming problem is capitalism. And I get how it can look better than where you are now, but there's a reason why we know it's not far enough, basically. So I don't know. It's very, very interesting. So when we look at this whole thing about China being both simultaneously strong and weak, we have to talk about how China has a horrible quality of life. They're not doing anything right. But then at the same time, all of a sudden, China is the biggest, baddest, strongest person on the planet, and we have to do all these things to fight off China. So this is a great example of that from the fascism playbook. Like, we have to do all this because China is so strong. But at the same time, we're saying China's so weak and pathetic. Don't worry about that. It's awful there. So this one report came out, and it condemned this Chinese company called Molybdenum, which, just a Chinese company. The report, though, was funded by Humanity United, which is an NGO founded by eBay billionaire and Intercept owner Pierre Omidyar, his wife Pam. And I know about Pierre Omidyar because our friend Lizzie, who has been on the podcast before, she often jokes that Pierre Omidyar is her favorite billionaire, tongue-in-cheek, because he's so weird. This is the guy who was an eBay founder who later was discovered to have like a whole secret life on Second Life.
Oh, she did that fucking PowerPoint about this guy.
She threw a PowerPoint party and she did a whole PowerPoint presentation about Pierre Omidyar, and he is just a weird dude. So if you're ever interested in learning more about this guy, fascinatingly bizarre character.
Get an invite to one of Lizzie's
PowerPoint parties. Yeah, they go off. So his wife Pam has this NGO she founded called Humanity United that did this whole report about how big and scary this Chinese company was as justification for why we need to go in Africa and basically do imperialism. The report didn't mention, though, that the company she was talking about is actually owned primarily by U.S. investment firms like J.P. Morgan, BlackRock, and Vanguard. Those are like the primary holders of this company. So very, very fascinating. Musavoli, in this article talking about the lake and the pipeline and the hometown, explains that this oil situation led to an uptick in the killing of locals, meanwhile, in places like Beni, as well as the displacement of like so many people from the region. Musavoli also claims that foreign governments with vested oil interests in the region, including the United States, had been talking about the dangers of a group of Ugandan rebels called the ADF, the Allied Democratic Forces, in the Congo, claiming they were working with ISIS to overthrow the Ugandan government. And remember, the Ugandan government by this point in time was kind of like a client government of the United States.
Yeah.
So Musavoli is totally skeptical of these claims, it's worth noting. Both their ties to ISIS and their ability to even overthrow the Ugandan government if they wanted to. So he writes, "It is ludicrous to think that a group of people will want to convert a nation the size of Europe to Islam by beheading people. Only the gullible can trust what the U.S. State Department and the U.S. Department of Defense are saying after their lies in Iraq and Afghanistan." So basically, it's like, look, the U.S. government is trying to tout up the ADF, the Allied Democratic Forces, to be a big bad to justify going into Congo and Uganda and basically laying down the groundwork to do brutal imperialism. But what they really want to do is control the flow of oil and try to fight with China. And it's at the expense of African people's lives in the region. So Musavoli points this out as like, hey, this group is just being used as justification for American military intervention, conveniently at the same time when they're trying to expedite pipeline development for American oil interests. And this all includes also a charity arm of a U.S. hedge fund who was making claims about, I don't know, this like same group. They're a Texas corporation called Bridgeway Foundation. Also, France was vowing to send in troops to also help fight the quote-unquote Islamic terrorists. Convenient because we know Total, the French oil company, had all of those oil stakes in the region. So Musavoli says, "I'm certain that the U.S. military coming under the umbrella of AFRICOM is there to secure U.S. interests in the Congo. I'm also clear that there was a huge attempt to counter Chinese interests in the Congo. People do not realize that Jeff Bezos could not go into space for 15 minutes if it wasn't for Congo's cobalt, nor could South African Elon Musk do the same. But this cobalt at the moment in the Congo is in control of China after the U.S. mining company Freeport-McMoRan sold it to China. Freeport controlled the largest cobalt reserve in the world. And watching the fight between the U.S. and China, I believe the U.S. is going to try to take that mine from the Chinese while playing anti-Chinese hysteria on the African continent. Mao said whoever controls the Congo controls the world. As Congolese people struggle to control their destiny, we know we are not alone, and we will not remain silent as they create their lies to control our land and resources. We want to control our land and resources. We want to exploit them for the benefits of our people and not the Washington lobby firms, the mining conglomerates, or Western powers. We want to better the conditions of our people. We know why the U.S. Special Forces are in Congo, and it is not to stop ISIS." So I just thought that was like a very good perspective from somebody from the region. So also in 2021, we have some action going on in Sudan. So in 2021, the U.S. removed Sudan from the list of Like, we keep this list of, like, state sponsors of terrorism. Pretty recently, I think Cuba was on it, and there was this huge campaign to actually get Cuba removed.
Well, they had the Havana syndrome. They were shooting people with anxiety guns.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Cuba was a state-sponsored terror. They were shooting Americans with anxiety guns. No, but I think we were successful in maybe January of this year of actually getting Cuba removed from this list. But in 2021, the U.S. removed Sudan from this list. And Andrew Young was the U.S. deputy commander from AFRICOM and was like, this is a big deal. We're welcoming a new beginning and a new relationship between the United States and Sudan. So something interesting is happening here is what we're hearing. In 2019, there had been a coup in Sudan that overthrew the longtime leader. And then in 2021, there was another coup, and the new government, surprise, surprise, ends up being more friendly to the United States.
And there are parades, and everyone loves it. They all get McDonald's and blue jeans.
Yeah, no. So the details of this coup are interesting. And the reporting I'm going to use from this comes from this guy, Patrick Fox. And Patrick Fox, not a commie daddy, okay? Comes from the John Quincy Adams Society, which is just a group dedicated to trying to minimize U.S. military invention around the world to preserve the interests of capital, because they're like, you're doing too much, guys. You're going overboard. He's kind of like, if you think about what Keynes tried to do for the U.S. economy, where Keynes was like, if we just do free market capitalism, it all collapses, and then we're going to go full-blown commie because the people are going to revolt. We need to do a little socialism so the people don't revolt. I feel like this is what Patrick Fox kind of does with the John Quincy Adams Society in general, what they try to do. They're like, hey, if we do this much imperialism, everybody's going to hate us, and we're going to lose all of our power. We need to tone it back a little bit.
It's also, I mean, right, like, this is a fundamental contradiction at the heart of capitalism, is that the free market needs a tremendous amount of military intervention to, like, right, it's like...
to make it work, because it doesn't work.
It's like, I'm sorry, just let the markets handle, like, if you are a...
If you believe in the free market.
This is like, who are I can't remember. It's the Ron Paul's kid who was in
Rand Paul.
Right, who's always like doing, he's like,
libertarian guy.
He's like super libertarian, not cool, not fun.
Mm-hmm.
But like every now and again he'll like take an anti-war position because he's like,
yeah, that's true. The libertarians sometimes do take anti-war positions because they want to oppose excess spending, usually.
Yeah,
like,
that's usually the fucking thing. But it's one of those things where it's like, listen, guys, make your capitalism consistent. Let the market handle it. Do it. Like, don't...
Right.
Like, if you... I don't know.
If you're going to do it, do it. Don't do this, like, weird fake version. Because it just admit that capitalism does not work.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we do have to force it on people.
You can't have a free market. So, Fox reports that the second coup that happened in 2021 was led by Sudan's top general, Lieutenant General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. And the new military regime arrested who Fox called, quote, pro-democracy political leaders, and then shut down the internet. Now, remember, Fox has a bias in who he's calling pro-democracy political leaders, whatever.
Wait, so this is who actually broke the internet?
Yeah. Abdel Fattah al-Burhan broke the internet. It's temporary, but So in January of 2021, then, the U.S. Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin visited Sudan. This is 10 months before the second coup happens, and signed a diplomatic agreement called the Abraham Accords. And this had Sudan recognizing and normalizing relations with Israel in exchange for accessing $1 billion in financing from the World Bank. So the United States went to Sudan and was like, if you want to get $1 billion from the World Bank, you need to normalize a relationship with Israel.
Man, we really are doing a lot for Israel.
Oh, yeah, and we're big on Israel. So he had met with the prime minister, who was later overthrown just a few months later, and the guy who overthrew him in one meeting, all right? And this came after Trump had authorized $700 million in aid to Sudan and acknowledged, hey, we're giving Sudan $700 million, in addition to the $1 billion in financing they get from the World Bank, remember, because they will be normalizing relations with Israel.
Mm-hmm.
So Trump had said this. And the Israeli intelligence chief stated that normalization of relations was part of the agenda, and a Sudanese foreign ministry spokesperson acknowledged secret diplomatic relations between Israel and Sudan at this time. Now, this is actually pretty major because the previous leader of Sudan, Omar al-Bashir, was identified by the United States as a militant Islamic extremist. The people Israel is always like, oh, no. And al-Bashir used to do political rallies holding the Quran in one hand and an AK-47 in another. So not exactly what Israel wants to see.
Optically
very strong.
That's a strong look. I will say, when we are reviving fads, that you're saying a 15-year period.
Yeah, we got a 15-year period. You think the trend of AK-47 and Quran?
I think
go hard?
With your single stitch T-shirt and your, which is
and your Coney 2012.
Your Coney 2012 T-shirt. I think that's get on it. Fashion.
It's gonna be a thing. Yeah. So he was not a fan of Israel. Israel is, frankly, it sounds like, terrified of him. And then next thing you know, Trump is like, we're gonna give Sudan a lot of money if they start being real cool to Israel. And then all of a sudden there's a coup and it overthrows the people who are not cool with Israel. And now all of a sudden a pro-US guy there who is cool with Israel pops up in his place. So pretty transparent, right? What's going on here? Now, Fox reports that the International Crisis Group said, quote, effective implementation of democracy in Sudan requires pressuring Arab powers to back down and allow popular demand to force real change. Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the Gulf states have historically represented American interests in the region in opposition to geopolitical rivals like Iran. Don't mention why Iran is our geopolitical rival. Big history there. We have a whole episode about it if you want to look. It's called Iran So Far Away. It's no coincidence, Fox says, that this is the group working to subvert democracy in Sudan today. The primacy of Sudan's military and its political affairs is not a coincidence by any means. It was arms sales from the United States that transformed Sudan into what it is today. In a bid to create a regional ally during the Cold War, the U.S. provided $1.4 billion in arms to Sudan between 1977 and 1985. This was the single largest commitment of American military resources to sub-Saharan Africa. With this army built and designed through massive U.S. military funding, Sudan fought brutal wars against the now separatists in the south of the country, where the vast majority of Sudan's oil was drilled. The fighting lasted from 1955 until 1973, with an estimated 500,000 deaths, then reignited in 1983 until 2005 with another 2 million deaths. This is the highest civilian toll of any war since World War II. It's hardly a coincidence that the period of massive U.S. funding coincided with a buildup before the war with southern separatists that became 4 times deadlier than it had been previously. As concessions were finally made to allow for an independence process in South Sudan, al-Bashir and the Sudanese military launched a new offensive in the region of Darfur, with upwards of 400,000 civilians killed in what has been described by many international organizations as a genocide. Violence in Darfur still occurs today. The United States has a far longer relationship with Sudan than is often admitted. So, this is very interesting. What we've learned, obviously, is what, David? The United States was involved in Sudan to fight communism and get oil.
Yeah,
we funded all these wars that killed millions of people in the region.
No, I was actually just thinking, because I remember that, around the time that Darfur happened,
yes,
which was news, people knew about it.
Yep.
But if you were a big New York Times type guy, at the time who wanted to have a good take, on Darfur, you'd be like, well, actually, this was all caused because of ethnic conflict over the Chinese investment in do you remember this?
I don't remember this.
This was if you were a New York Times type guy,
you're like, it's China's fault.
Yeah, it was China's fault.
But really, even conservative American military strategist guys are like, no, that was us. That was 100% us. We are responsible for all of this stuff. And this is what the United States does. We go, we meddle, people die, we get oil.
And then we go, and it's China's fault.
Mm-hmm. It's all China's fault. So Fox's main takeaway from all of this is the United States via AFRICOM in recent years had a huge role in the coup in Sudan, and also a huge role in just constantly having political and military influence in the region. So meanwhile, Black Alliance for Peace and the U.S. out of AFRICOM network this year, 2021 we're in, right? Is that still 2021? Yeah, 2021. Yeah. They team up and they're like, we have to raise public awareness about what's happening in AFRICOM. So they schedule an entire month of political action. And Tunde Osaka writes about this and says, AFRICOM continues to militarily occupy Africa, with thousands of U.S. troops now stationed in 30 African countries with dozens of U.S. bases across the continent, while it carries out bombings in places like Somalia. U.S. Special Forces roam the Sahel, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Uganda, South Sudan, and the Central African Republic. Sanctions on Zimbabwe, Eritrea, and Ethiopia function as an economic form of U.S. war on African people. The U.S. empire does not use only direct forms of war. AFRICOM also functions as an infiltration in force to reinforce relationships that the U.S. Africa Command has been cultivating with African militaries. Through these relationships, the U.S. and other Western powers use African militaries as proxies to fight wars on their behalf. The continued drone strikes in Somalia, the Western-led militarization in the Congo and Mozambique, and the recent coup d'etat in Guinea, Niger, and Mali, and the massive military exercises that AFRICOM has organized with the participation of tens of African states, demonstrate that Western neocolonial powers like the U.S. and France are intensifying war on African people and their military stranglehold on the African continent and the new scramble for Africa. So this is really interesting. And one of the things that is referenced in here that we haven't yet talked about is these kind of like military exercises.
Mm-hmm.
So the United States starts doing these massive military exercises. I think one of them is called Tiger Heats or something like that. Or I have to look this up. Actually.
I'm sorry.
Isn't that the name of like the teeny bopper magazine?
I think you're thinking of Tiger Beat.
No, I am.
My first thing was like Tiger Heat. Well, you know what you need for that.
What?
You need some Tiger Balm.
Oh, Tiger Balm. Wow, yeah. I'm trying to look up what the name of this thing is. It's got something like Tiger in the title. I can't find it off the top of my head. But there's other military operations like this too, and they're huge. And the United States puts them on in this really, really showy way, and they're training all of these kind of different military groups throughout Africa. So it's very fascinating. And also, I think another thing to like really focus on here is like we are playing these African countries against each other's like pawns on our chessboard.
Yeah.
And it really is. I liked in the quote, it's like it's a war on African people. Mm-hmm. It's not a formal war. We haven't announced that we're going to war, but we are still at war with the people on the African continent. So this month of action that's put together by all of these kind of groups that are interested in human rights and like the continent of Africa in general and American imperialism and Black rights in the United States as well, they make this kind of a recurring annual event every October. And this is still going on to this day. In October of 2024, for example, the theme of the event was Resisting Fascism and Neocolonialism, U.S. Out of Africa. And they held rallies just a few months ago in Pittsburgh, Boston, Atlanta, Nashville, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Brooklyn, Cambridge, New York City, Providence, Paris, Philadelphia, Newark. This is a pretty huge event that's picking up steam. So 2022, the same person we just referenced, Tunde Osaka, reports that the U.S. passed the National Defense Authorization Act for 2022 that included billions of dollars in funding for AFRICOM and the continuation of the Defense Department's 1033 program, which transferred millions of dollars worth of military equipment to police forces across the country domestically. So Tunde says, resources that are being squandered to support imperialist adventurers must be seized by the people and used to address the human rights needs of African, Black people, and other oppressed and exploited peoples for housing, healthcare, education, food, and clean water, instead of on war on behalf of the capitalist dictatorship. So this is another one of those points where you're looking at, like, why should Americans care about this? It's like, well, from a human rights perspective, you should care. But even if you're just being selfish, it's like, hey, we're spending money to harm people in Africa that could be spent helping people in the United States.
Yeah.
This is very point blank. Even if you're the most selfish person in the world, it makes sense to oppose this.
But Madeline, we need that oil.
To fight China.
And gold and cobalt.
And cobalt. God forbid we have public transportation. No, we need the oil. So, I know what the thing was called. It's called African Lion. That's the name of the operation. It's not Tiger.
You got it.
Lion.
You got your lions and your tiger. Tiger Heat does sound like off-brand Tiger Balm.
It sounds like something the U.S. government would do. It's a bad name. African Lion is also a weird bad name.
I'm going to say, for anyone who happens to have accidentally tuned in from the U.S. security state,
you were getting that attention?
No, I don't. But I wish. Please make Tiger Heat real.
Tiger Heat.
Just make Tiger Heat real and then make it like a camphor balm.
Like a product.
Yeah.
Like a product. You want to see the product come to life.
I want to see Tiger Heat.
David's a product developer, research and development.
Yes.
Okay.
It's basically just Tiger Balm, but the packaging for Tiger Balm is so iconic.
It is. So this would need to be like an American flag version.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like it with like eagles.
Yeah, do it like
Eagles and tigers together.
do it. What's the like Operator Coffee Company? It's like Black Rifle Coffee or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Do it like that. Make it like that.
Okay, all right. I'm not familiar
like
with it visually, but
gun like guns.
Okay, so we need an eagle riding a tiger, and they both have guns.
Yes.
I like it. I'm in. So, AFRICOM this year conducts its African Lion exercise, and it involves, in 2022, more than 7,000 service members. So many people. And it happens in Morocco, in Ghana, in Senegal, in Tunisia. It involves military personnel from the United States, Brazil, Chad, France, Italy, Netherlands, and the UK.
This is something that I think about a lot, which is, let's say, because like the U.S. military is drawn together from generally speaking, not the wealthiest portions of the U.S. population.
Correct.
Right. And so let's imagine, I like a neighbor of mine, his kid just joined the military or just joined the army, and poor family.
Yes.
Right. And so you're this like kid from like East Hollywood or whatever, and someone's like, hey, guess what? You're going to Ghana. Like, you got to be like, what the fuck, guy? Like,
yeah, you have no idea what's going on, honestly. It makes me think of that video that circulated where the Democratic Party, is either Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, gave a speech where they were like, and we have no active wars going on anywhere around the country, blah, blah, blah. And it's a video of all these U.S. military men on active duty in another country. And then the camera pans to them and they're like, no, where the fuck are we? But this is the thing. They are able to say that because we're not actually declaring war. We're just doing all these military operations.
Yeah, no, but first of all, Joe Biden gave a speech.
What?
How?
I mean, it was like a year ago. He was giving speeches back then, I think. But it could have been Kamala Harris. I can't remember, honestly. Yeah. It was before the election, but whatever. So in 2022, the United States Congress passes this bill with almost no opposition at all called the Countering Malign Russian Activities in Africa bill. So again, we're like, we got to do more in Africa to fight back against Russia now. And as the Communist Party of Kenya explained, this bill basically sought to give the U.S. State Department power to punish any African country that had even cordial relations with Russia. So they were like, once this bill becomes an act, it's likely to be aimed at South Africa, a member of BRICS, which, we're going to have to do a whole episode about BRICS. But they're basically like, look, not only is the United States trying to control every country on the continent of Africa, they're also trying to control who we talk to, who we deal with, what relationships we normalize. They're coming in and they're like, you have to normalize relations with Israel. You cannot normalize relations with Russia. Mm-hmm. So this is kind of what's going on. We've got our military thing, and then we have all these domestic kind of policies.
And again, I just have to point out, what happened to the free market, motherfuckers?
Yeah, why do you force this if the free market works so well?
Like, let the market decide who people do business with. Just gonna throw that out there.
If that's what you're doing, if you're a capitalism guy, where's your capitalism free market god now? So back in Somalia, obviously we've been super involved. So U.S. forces in Somalia by the year 2020 had numbered around 700 people, and Donald Trump had actually withdrawn them during the final month of his administration, which led to a 16-month period where there were no U.S. forces permanently deployed in Somalia. There were some temporarily still in like Djibouti or Kenya. But in May of 2022, the Biden administration actually reversed the Trump policy and reinstituted permanent deployment in Somalia again.
I'm loving, you got to imagine that if you are the U.S. military at that moment leaving Afghanistan, or like, so you're in Somalia, like let's say you're like stationed in Somalia and you're watching all the U.S. military leave Afghanistan and you're like, And we're going back to fucking Somalia? What the fuck?
It's very, very, very perplexing. I mean, in Congo, also, meanwhile, we've got other activities. Do you remember that group M23? They were like, you didn't honor our treaties. We're going to revolt and kill a bunch of people.
I do not remember.
Okay, that's right. It was from the last episode. They basically had been kind of funded by the U.S. government and kind of part of these negotiations with the U.S. government. And the negotiations basically had been in favor of that. Like, it wasn't with the U.S. government. It was, like, backed, though, by the U.S. government. And the negotiations had favored them a lot. But then they were like, hey, we signed this treaty with you, and we didn't get everything you said you were going to give us, so now we're mad. So they had started kind of just like doing violence until they got what they wanted. Well, they re-emerged in 2022 and started committing massacres and seizing territory again. And it was pretty apparent at the time that this was under Rwandan command, which caused Western leaders to call on Rwanda to intervene. Ann Garrison, though, is like, okay, sure, Rwanda is involved, but Uganda, which is basically an American client state at this time, is the one who is super involved in this. And so Ann Garrison is like, Uganda's involvement more or less flies under the radar at this time. Nobody really knows why. So she follows this up with, the West essentially chose the Rwandan and Ugandan elite to manage the resource wealth of Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo in their interest. Rwanda and Uganda have territorial ambitions served by killing and displacing millions of people. And the West shows no sign of pulling its support from either regime. So the Rwandan and Ugandan troops basically, remember, had been the military ranks that M23 was born of. They had come from these kind of U.S. client state things, and they had all been trained by AFRICOM.
Okay.
So basically, we go in there, we train these people, we create little paramilitary groups that then go around and commit massacres and kill millions of civilians. They had kind of been dormant for a little bit, and then in 2022, they pop up again.
And then we're like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah. How dare you? You gotta stop. And it's like, we did that.
Yeah.
We did that. So by 2023, we also see like a return to more activity in Sudan. Now, remember, Sudan is a nation of like 47, I don't know, billion people with a B? Million people? Million people with an M?
Madeline,
Huh.
how many people do you think are on Earth?
How many people are on Earth? God, my brain's not working right now. California has 30 million people. The United States has 330 million people. How many billions of people are on Earth? China has
like
billions of people.
I think it's like
India, 8? No, it's not 8. How many billion people on Earth?
No, because in our life.
Oh my God, it's 8 billion. Okay, all right.
Jesus Christ! It's like
I'm fucking.
wait. I'm like the. Am I not supposed to be like the stupid interlocutor who goes, "Wow"?
Well, you know
and
what
their
happened
background.
here? What happened here is I had a typo where I wrote a nation of 47 million people, and I read it was like billion. That's not right. Million.
But I'm
Correct
supposed to be the dumb guy who sits there and goes,
Yeah.
"Wow, that's crazy."
Well, you correct my typos sometimes too when I'm just reading.
And then
Yeah, it's important.
yeah,
It's an important one. When I'm like 47 billion, no, million? How many people are on the planet?
what
That's
the
your job.
fuck?
I don't, you know.
But like just like common sense, you're sitting there going, because in our lifetime, I remember
I am in the zone. I'm reading through. My brain's not going. My brain's reading.
In our lifetime, I think we were like 17, 18,
Oh,
something like this.
17, 18, okay.
It was like famously like 6 billionth person born. I think.
Why do you remember that? I don't remember that.
Because it triggered like a lot of like this was relatively around like when like libertarian / occupy type motherfuckers
Okay.
like that, like
Yeah.
Ron Paul 20
But
whatever.
were they thinking there was too many people?
They thought there were too many people.
Okay, we got 2 billion more now.
And like they were like, we're all gonna run out of resources and it's gonna be Waterworld.
Oh my God, I loved Waterworld. Okay, well, here's my thing. I know the United States is a relatively small country
Yeah.
in terms of population.
Yes.
But I know like China and India have over 1 billion people each.
Yes.
But I also know there's like 200 countries almost.
Yes.
So I'm like trying to do the math and I'm like, well,
Yeah, but
like,
some of those countries are Luxembourg.
some of those countries are Monaco. Some of
Yes.
those countries are Andorra.
Yeah, they have like
People
5
live in
people.
Andorra.
They did
Andorra
5.
population, 80,000 people live in Andorra.
That's like less than my neighborhood.
I mean, it's real small. It's
Yeah.
hardly anything. You're right. So India's got like 1.5 billion people. China's got 1.5 billion people. I think I assumed
You're just assuming
we're
we're like,
out here with people. I thought we had people everywhere.
no.
No, we don't have people everywhere. Most of the people are in China and India.
Yes, I believe this. When the 6 billion, when that was publicized, I believe the baby was Indian.
There you go. That makes sense, and it makes sense why the
Though I always
So-
This is completely off topic. Presumably, babies are born all the time.
I think so. But now I don't trust anything about my knowledge of the population. So for anybody listening, do not trust anything I say about population numbers. It is not my strong suit.
Also, off-air Madeline does talk about how we what's that toxic narcotic song, 6 billion people must die.
Oh yeah, I'm an eco-fascist who is violently advocating for the destruction of all human life, constantly kill them all. Famous
which is
politics.
Metallica.
It's a Metallica album I grew up on that
It's
I think influenced my politics, actually.
The only good Metallica, well, and Ride Lightning, the two good Metallica albums.
Yeah, there's good Metallica albums.
But yeah, that's Madeline's politics. So you are...
I typoed 47 billion people. I did notice that didn't feel right in my heart of hearts and was like,
But you were
But I
like...
still can't be trusted fully.
I will say.
Counts. I'm not the best at it. It's hard to think about how many people there are. I have to make everything in terms of how many Fresnos it is. So 47 million people. So
yeah, and you do that.
100 Fresnos.
You do that in the funniest way because you're like I have heard you say, and I repeated until I thought about it.
Yeah.
I repeated from you. Fresno is larger than Miami.
The population of Fresno is larger than the population of the city of Miami.
Yes, but the city of Miami is like, right, it's like, you got to think like Miami-Dade.
No.
Like the whole fucking
See, the population of the city of Miami is 460,000 people.
I have never
The population of the city of Fresno is 547,000. We have more people than the city.
But that's like the county.
But you're also not counting like the surrounding areas of Fresno. It's not like I'm comparing Fresno.
Yes, but they work differently because like the Fresno is mid-sized American city plopped into like the agricultural heartland of America. That's how
You're saying Miami has a more sprawling suburb.
Yes.
It is correct though that the city of Fresno has more people in it than the city of Miami.
It is misleading.
It is not misleading. It is accurate.
Yes, but when people are like, oh, like, this is inside baseball for California people, and specifically San Joaquin Valley people, because literally the rest of California does not give a shit about Fresno.
Nobody cares about Fresno.
But if you go to Fresno, there are some cute areas.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
A diverse, vibrant population with a fascinating labor history that we talked about in an episode on the UFW.
Agreed.
But visually, most of Fresno looks like most of the exurb type areas in America, where it is strip malls on like large 5-lane roads.
Yeah, I did say it was beautiful.
I
don't think anybody's out here saying Fresno's a beautiful city.
I think that when you say Fresno has a larger population than Miami, what people hear is Fresno is a vibrant, thriving metropolis as opposed to a sprawling real estate deal that inches northward year by year till it will eventually encompass all of Madera.
Well, you know what? That is their personal interpretation. And that is their problem, not mine. I'm just saying, I know people who, the person I started dating was like, oh yeah, Fresno, lots of barns and cows. And I was like, absolutely not.
No, it's...
Very few barns, no cows in the city limits of Fresno, probably. Do you think there's cows in the city limits?
Oh yeah, no, because I lived...
College?
No, I lived on the canal, right?
There were canal cows?
Yes, there were canal
That actually
cows.
kind of makes sense for Fresno. I don't know how to explain it, but the fact that there were... cows near the city canal.
Sometimes when I talk about my life, like, I have to be careful because I've done this a few times recently where, like, it sounds like I'm, like, describing, like, a John Steinbeck novel accidentally where I'll say, well, I grew up on the canal.
It was a concrete canal that ran through the middle of the city.
And I lived...
City of a population larger than Miami City. And the most interesting thing that happened with the canal in our lifetime is that 2 of our classmates built a raft and sailed
That's
down the
not-
canal.
Then no. So I had like my parents moved into like a relatively decent whatever house that happened to be in the neighborhood that the canal bisected. But a lot of people who were running from the police because they like to hold up various stores on Blackstone not too far away.
Like you do.
Would use the canal as their like they would try to run up the canal to get away from it.
Smart.
From the cops. And our house backed up to the canal, so a couple times they would just run into our backyard.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That happens.
Yeah. I think that was more interesting than our friends.
I think that our
Go
friends in high school building a raft to float down an urban canal was very bizarre. And
You say urban,
it is urban.
but you
Fresno is an urban.
no, it is a sprawling suburb, right? Like I have been to cities,
Yes.
like cities.
Yes. I've also famously been to cities. Do you think LA is a city? Because I think Fresno looks like LA.
Fresno looks like it, but like right. How many people do you think like downtown Fresno is like a ghost town?
It is a ghost town.
So
There's more stuff popping up. They have a vegan Mexican place called
my God.
Mojaca.
This is
Very good.
I remember a friend of a woman we grew up knowing because she worked at like the big vintage store in town.
Yes.
Was like downtown is gentrifying. The last time I was in Fresno, like 5 years ago,
Yeah.
and like we drove through. Like my partner at the time and I were driving through, and I was like, I don't know. This is I famously don't love like natural wine type bullshit. Maybe Fresno could use it.
I mean, Fresno, maybe there's a lot of abandoned buildings in Fresno.
Yeah, okay,
it's
but
very
it's
fascinating demographically. Okay,
so back to
whatever the
Africa.
case, Sudan, a nation of 47 million people, typo corrected on script, but it's pretty big. 47 million people.
Yeah, that it's
Yeah, it's bigger than California.
how many Fresnos is it, Madeline?
I told you it's almost 100 Fresnos. It's a lot of Fresnos. It's 100 Fresnos. So the most important thing about Sudan, besides it being 100 Fresnos, which is significant,
That's not that.
that's a lot of Fresnos. They are also well endowed with oil, and diamonds,
Mm-hmm.
and they have port access,
Okay.
which means the United States all into that. A lot more interested in Sudan than it is in Fresno,
Yeah.
its own city.
That we could like if they discover oil in Fresno, it's over for the.
It's over for everyone.
It's over for Fresno. It's over.
for Fresno.
Yeah.
So on April 15th, fighting breaks out in Sudan. And in just a few months, over 1,000 people are killed in these fights, in skirmishes. And 5,000 people get injured, and 1 million people end up displaced. So the Black Agenda Report talks about this, and they say that the State Department under AFRICOM furthered basically the institutionalized dominance of the military structures within Sudanese society, right? Because what do? AFRICOM goes into a country, we train their military, we kind of like softly are in charge of the military, kind of, we control it, blah, 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 blah. But then we're conveniently far enough away that we're like, well, it wasn't us who did it. But while we're doing this, basically, as they report, Washington's foreign policy, meanwhile, is aggravating tensions that exist in Sudan between the army and the militias. And that contributes to this fighting, which is basically like civil unrest. So when the fighting broke out, further proof that U.S. military involvement had been one of the key things that started this is that U.S. military officials had to be immediately removed from Sudan for their own safety. Because everybody knew. Everybody there was like, the U.S. military's got their hands all over this. So basically, we were involved in a civil war in Sudan without it actually officially being these things.
And then we took our assets and went home.
Yeah, we were like, thanks for the oil, bye. Leaving. So 2024, international kind of critique of AFRICOM is starting to pick up steam. It's not super prevalent, but people are starting to ask questions about like how effective this is, how ethical this is. And it's not just internationally, it's also internally in the United States as well. So Mike Sweeney is like one of those talking head type guys who talks about the military. And
He wears a big suit.
he's kind of big suit, sure. He's got an article called Rethinking Africa Command that comes out in Defense Priorities. And he says, a small but growing number of analyses have questioned U.S. policy towards Africa. These critics argue that the United States has allowed counterterrorism to become the primary element of U.S. engagement in Africa with outcomes that have been questionable at best. So even internally, our government is like, and kind of critiques and, talking head type kind of assessments of what we're doing in Africa. Everybody's like, is this even working to serve our interests at this point? Now, 2024, Chad becomes a topic of, note as well.
Okay, this isn't completely off. You know what? This is going to be me forcing you off topic all the time.
Fine. Let's
It's
go.
kind of episode.
Yeah.
Not to do with the country of Chad.
Are you going to talk about a man named Chad?
No, have I not told you about my Chads per capita rule?
No, you're not talking about the Chads per capita.
I mean, I was in it's not Palm Desert a few years ago. And somehow on our way there, to the place we were staying, there were 5 different Chads running for some manner of city council.
Whoa, really?
In Palm Desert. And I was like, I think, and then when I lived in Idaho, right when I moved there, the person who picked me up, their name was Chad. And then within a month, I'd met 10 Chads.
This is amazing. I don't think I've ever met a single Chad in real life.
And I was like, I think we need to have a Chads per capita rule. That needs to be on your quality of life index that people do for right, or the.
So you're not trying to purge the excess Chads.
No, it's
you just want to know how many Chads.
If I'm visiting a
Chads
place
per capita in a region, so you know what to expect.
Or when they do the hamburger index, where it's
Yes.
or whatever the fuck they call it, where it's oh, you can buy a hamburger in Nashville for half.
How many hours of work does it take to buy a hamburger?
Yeah. I think that we just in that list, I would like to know before I go to a place how many Chads I should expect to meet.
I think this is fair. What do you think, though, just putting it out there, is the new equivalent of Chad? Because Chad is the millennial kind of manifestation of that energy.
Is it Aiden?
It might be an Aiden.
An Aiden.
An Aiden per capita complex.
Yeah. I need to know.
You want to know. Okay, so I'm willing to guess that the country of Chad.
0 Chads.
0 Chads probably in the entire country of Chad. So the government of Chad requests a renegotiation of its agreements with AFRICOM. They had previously been allowing the U.S. military to kind of access its territory as wanted under this AFRICOM kind of agreement. But at this time, 2024, Chad's like, maybe we should reconsider this. And this actually leads to the withdrawal of 75 U.S. Special Operations Forces from a disputed base near N'Djamena, basically. So the U.S. had around 100 Special Operations personnel in Chad prior to this. So this is 75% of the people we have there. Chad's like, this isn't working for us. You got to get out of here. And this is a big deal. This is major. So,
a small African country is basically saying, please leave.
Please leave. The United States, get the fuck out of here. Eventually, contract terms do get renegotiated to allow for limited U.S. military presence in Chad, but a senior U.S. defense official indicated that the U.S. does not anticipate returning to Chad with the same footprint that it previously had. So they're like, well, instead, the United States is going to try to build a new presence from the ground up that aligns its goals more with the interests of Chads. And this is interesting because it means that these African countries do have some pull because the United States needs to be there more than they probably need us there. And this approach is thought to reflect this huge shift in the United States strategy, which basically means hey, if you want to play ball in Africa, you need to facilitate and develop African countries and their goals rather than just trying to stomp all over the continent because they're seeing what you're doing and it's not working for them.
If you would like to persist in a sort of neo-imperialist, neo-colonialist type policy, scalpel rather than a hammer.
Yes. So this official said that African partners want to lead their own countries. Shocking, not have them led by the U.S. military via AFRICOM. And Niger, the same year, did the exact same thing, ordered the U.S. military to leave its territory. So this is just last year. 2024, these countries are trying to put their foot down. Now, that leads us to this year, 2025. We're going to talk about Algeria a little bit. Now, Algeria had long been a holdout against AFRICOM, kind of in the region. They famously condemned Israel for years in its role in the genocide of the Palestinian people. But on January 22nd, a new document was signed, which was a U.S.-Algeria Defense Cooperation Memorandum of Understanding. And this was kind of major. This is in the opposite kind of the move of Niger and Chad. Algeria was kind of like, okay, maybe we'll start to play ball. So a U.S. defense official talked about it on the condition of anonymity, but said this is a first of its kind agreement between the U.S. and Algeria. And this is seen as just a major shift in Algerian foreign policy.
So what was going on in Algeria why? Like, why?
Why? What's happening in Algeria at this time? So basically, it's always going to be a pursuit of resources for the United States. That's what we want out of it. And these memorandums of understanding are, MOUs, basically is what we call them. They're legally non-binding. They're usually just like symbolic of potential future arrangements to be made.
It's like a promise ring.
It's like a promise ring, right? So as the AFRICOM kind of, commander, who's a Marine Corps general guy named Michael Langley, he says that it states the intention of both parties to explore potential opportunities for cooperation in areas that would include, so this is what they're interested in there, maritime search and rescue, counterterrorism, military training, and military healthcare initiatives. So what they're trying to do is they are trying to identify, guide, and review discrete opportunities and proposals for military cooperation with Algeria, with the first one occurring this year. But we don't really know what is going on. My guess, though, based on the previous records we have, especially in terms of countries that had famously kind of held out against supporting Israel, is it probably has something to do with access to funding.
Okay.
So that's probably what we can look at. So we don't really know yet. Anything would kind of be speculation about why we want to do this, because this is really new.
Well, I guess, my question is, why Algeria would want to, right?
What's the Algeria political state in 2025? That's a good question. Let's take a look. So I don't know. We don't really have much current
let's
on
put a
Algeria.
pin in that, and
That's an interesting question.
we'll do an episode, maybe like a Patreon bonus thing.
Oh yeah, that would be interesting about why is Algeria suddenly interested in playing ball. I would guess it has something to do with secret promises the United States made for funding in some way. So on April 3rd, which is just around a month ago at the date of recording, AFRICOM Commander Michael Langley also testified to the Senate Armed Services Committee that the United States needed to continue our operations in Africa, specifically to push back against Russia and China. So his main argument is that, hey, this needs to be a foreign policy goal against our enemies. He then accused the leader of Burkina Faso, who is, I think that's technically pronounced like Ibrahim Traoré or something, but I'm going to pronounce it the very American way, which is Ibrahim Traoré, right? Is that?
I think that will make everyone
it's
you trying and butchering his name.
It's worse than just going full Valley Girl with it.
Yeah, I think
Ibrahim Traoré. Yeah. So Burkina Faso's been in the news a lot, and this is the country a lot of people have been asking us about. So Michael Langley, just a month ago, goes to the Senate Armed Services and is like, we got to keep up all our AFRICOM stuff. Also, the leader of Burkina Faso is hoarding the country's gold reserves and not letting us have any.
So if I understand this correctly, this is because you sent me an article about this, and so I looked into it a little. Is this a good time to jump in with the currency stuff?
Let me give you a little bit of background, and then let's have a convo. Okay. So Langley said that Traoré was using the gold to pay for the military in Burkina Faso rather than the benefit of his people, which is a weird spin. The United States doesn't really care about the benefit of the people.
Yeah, also, it kind of looked like they were doing literacy campaigns and shit.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just throwing this out there.
So Black Agenda Report says that positioning the leader of Burkina Faso as a military junta, basically, coincides with an uptick in unverified social media posts that are just randomly starting to call him a dictator. And we know that the U.S. government propaganda campaigns work in tandem with our military operations to kind of do this. So it seems like the United States is working to build Traoré up into what we talked about in the last episode is a big bad. Oh no, he's a military dictator who's horrible for his people. Now, it's true there is some stuff that socially isn't super progressive. I don't know, they're not the best on gay rights, but guess what? Neither is the United States.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, I just got the very obvious point that uh gay people die by American bombs too. I don't know how
Yes.
else to put it,
No,
right?
it's
Like
true.
that's like right. It does not further the interests of gay people to foist American military intervention, either directly or indirectly,
Right. And this
right?
is like this kind of pink washing thing that happens, or like rainbow washing, where it's like, no, it's okay to do American imperialism because they don't have the best track record on gay rights. Well, you're like, first of all, the United States doesn't either. Are we going to bomb ourselves?
Listen, how will women take microloans from the IMF to sell baskets on Etsy if they don't go to American funded schools?
Right. That's so true. I had not considered that. Yeah, but to really think about this, if you're a gay person who's concerned about this, like I think that's valid. Think about though, especially if you're a gay person from like a Republican area, a very red state where you don't have a lot of gay protections. How would you feel if another country was like, "Oh yeah, we got to bomb the shit out of Alabama because they don't have a great track record on gay rights." If you're a gay person in Alabama, you're like, what? No, please don't do that. Please don't bomb Alabama. What are you fucking talking about? I'm here. I'm gay. Like, yeah, it's not the best, but like bombing, none of that makes sense. So this is kind of what some upticks in these social media posts are pointing out. I mean, and they're not totally wrong, but also to position Traore as this like right-wing military dictator is also not correct. So I'm going to go on a little bit with the Black Agenda Report and what they said, and then we're going to talk about it in a little more detail. Black Agenda Report talks about these social media posts that are going around like, he's a military dictator, and says none of these posts are conclusively evidenced, and their scale, sometimes described as hundreds or a small group, varies across reports. No major news outlets seem to have reported such protests against the government. Like these social media reports are like, everybody's protesting this military dictator, and Black Agenda Report is basically like, we haven't seen any evidence of this. This is a classic element in Western regime change playbooks. It's just like, pretend like there's a big bad and all the people there hate him because he's so repressive, and that justifies us going in and doing whatever we want. So Human Rights Watch, obviously, we know, is problematic. They cite CIA stuff all the time. It's unfortunately not the utopian neutral indicator of good and bad in the world that would be convenient if it existed. It's not that way. They've long been a tool used to advance Western neoliberal capitalist goals. They paint every country that opposes U.S. intervention or exploitation as, they just hate us because they commit human rights abuses and we're trying to give them freedom, right? So they also have been involved in kind of trying to paint Burkina Faso as being this like horrific right-wing military dictatorship as well. They reported that Burkina Faso was cracked down on dissent and that members of the civilian militia, volunteers in defense of the homeland, have killed members of the Fulani ethnic minority. And Black Agenda Report says it seems likely that there is some incidence of VDH violence, that's the Volunteers in Defense of the Homeland, against the Fulani, but that this is an internal problem for the Burkinabe people and their government, not cause for the humanitarian intervention, big air quotes, that's usually on the US, EU, NATO drawing board before these reports are published. Volunteers in Defense of the Homeland are civilian self-defense militia organized to defend communities against the jihadist violence unleashed by the US, EU, NATO destruction of Libya. In response to Traore's mobilization call, the numbers of volunteers increased to 90,000, well beyond the goal of 50,000 according to ACLED. These are Western playbook moves for overthrowing any government that actually tries to do something for its people in the global south. So basically, we're looking at internal issues that, probably are real, but also like not justification for us to go in and get involved. And we're trying to use them to blow Traore up into this big bad character.
And it's worth noting, Traore is positioning himself as a kind of like Sankara figure, right?
So yeah, he's definitely trying to push back against Western imperialism on the continent. And he has been inspiring to other African country leaders like, hey, we don't have to just let the U.S. government walk all over us. So the Black Agenda Report talks about this and says the real issue is that Traore nationalized the country's gold reserves by approving the construction of Burkina Faso's first refinery to process gold domestically, halting the export of unrefined gold to Europe and advancing the industrialization and skills developed needed to create this prosperous domestic economy and lift the Burkinabe people out of the imperialist extractive economy. So they talk about how this includes renegotiating mining contracts with foreign corporations in a way that demands better terms for the country rather than those corporations. So simultaneously, he also prioritized the country becoming self-sufficient from a food standpoint and expelled French military forces from the country. So basically, we see that what he's really trying to do is make the country less reliant upon or dependent upon any kind of EU or US interference. He's trying to renegotiate these contracts. He's trying to make Burkina Faso more self-sufficient, and he's trying to use the local resources to help the local people and kind of get out from under the boot of this Western dominance. And this is really what the United States is mad about. And this is why we see him being blown up on social media as a quote unquote big bad military dictator, which there's really not evidence that he is. And any kind of small things we can find that are less than ideal but are domestic issues that sovereign countries deserve the right to handle on their own, like, for example, domestic skirmishes with, the VDH, or they'll probably work and eventually progress enough to develop a stronger and better platform on gay rights, for example, just like the United States still needs to do too. We should focus at home. Like, these things are domestic issues that do not warrant our intervention. And he is doing really so let's talk about the backstory.
Oh, okay. This is, I like, just as a general rule, but what about gay people? And then as a rhetorical strategy, like a very liberal type rhetorical strategy. And then you're like, wait, is the ... at the end of that supposed to lead to American military intervention?
How does that help gay people?
I think you should just in general look askance at that, right? Because you can be like, yeah, that does suck. You can say, wow, a bad position on gay rights, or a bad and be like, that blows, right? Without being like, you know what would solve that? A lot of guns.
Yeah, a lot of American military. It would not. The American military, which famously has a great track record on gay rights itself.
They came out. You can ask and tell now.
Progress. Lockheed Martin is at Pride, David. So I think gay rights. Also. Raytheon is at Pride. I think gay rights has been solved as an issue, don't you?
I love that. All right, so...
Okay, so we've got this article that we wanted to talk about that's a little more current, that's by Mint Press News. And I like Mint Press News. If you guys are looking for left-wing politics and kind of investigative journalism and reporting, Mint Press News does a good job. So, I think they're a good place to start. And we have this recent article from just a few days ago that came out May 7th, written by Alan McLeod. And Alan McLeod, if you're on Twitter as well, has a great internet presence there too. I recommend following. And he wrote about this and says, why Washington is worried about Burkina Faso's young revolutionary leader. And it's worth noting, Traoré, 37 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So young, full of energy, ready to fight Western imperialism. So
I'm sorry.
37? A world leader?
Okay,
How old is Donald Trump?
No, he's 80-something.
Trump age. He's 78 years old. So come
on. No, I think it's the...
So you're going to talk a little bit about the Franc thing.
I think it's worth understanding that in the sort of post-Bretton Woods agreement from 1945, the French franc was... devalued as opposed to the dollar, or I'm sorry, it was strengthened as opposed to the dollar to allow for American imports into France. What they did with former French colonies,
including Burkina Faso,
then not called Burkina Faso, was strengthen a common currency called the CFA franc, which was common to 13 former French colonies in Africa, in order to facilitate trade moving from France into exports from France into Burkina Faso, and sort of hobble the ability of Burkina Faso to produce things and export them for the French market.
Yes.
Right. At the same time, it required members in that currency situation to deposit 50% of their currency in the French National Bank. So that is an almost textbook example let's call it neocolonialism.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of stuff that Traore is trying to push back.
Oh, and it's worth noting, when they got their name under Thomas Sankara, a huge part of Sankara's policy or his goals was sort of anti-imperialist. Like, we're not going to take loans from the IMF. We are going to foster domestic industry and stuff like that. And Traore is positioning himself as a leader in that
School of thought.
and has withdrawn Burkina Faso from the CFA franc.
Yes. So also worth noting is that last month on April 16th, there was a major plot in Burkina Faso to storm the presidential palace. And apparently Traore's kind of military group managed to shut that down. And there is evidence that this was foreign orchestrated. So the plotters, according to Security Minister Mahamadou Sana, were based in Ivory Coast, which is a Washington-backed neighbor, according to Mint Press News, where American military presence has recently expanded. So Traore took power in a military coup in September 2022, and he has been kind of in the crosshairs of Western imperialist power, including the United States since then, because he is not friendly to Western interests, basically. So this is what had happened, and Langley, meanwhile, the leader of AFRICOM, is like, how dare Burkina Faso not allow us to extract their gold?
Mm-hmm.
It's wild, basically.
Oh, and they had also nationalized the gold industry to the tune of, I think, $80 million was the number I saw floating around.
Yes. So Traore nationalized the gold industry and was like, you guys don't have access to our gold like that anymore. And the United States is losing it. And AFRICOM is like, we have to get in there. How dare he keep his gold from us, basically. So the day of the coup attempt, also worth noting, or the day of the actual coup, sorry, the U.S. Embassy changed its travel guidelines for Burkina Faso to do not travel, which is interesting. And Langley, the AFRICOM guy, met with the, remember that we were talking about how there's evidence that the coup attempt came from the Ivory Coast?
Yeah.
Well, Langley from AFRICOM had met with the defense minister of the Ivory Coast numerous times this year, both before and after the coup attempt. Oh, actually, it was the coup attempt, according to this Mint Press article, that day that the U.S. Embassy changed its travel guidelines to do not travel.
Yeah.
So it's pretty compelling evidence that the United States maybe was involved in trying to back a coup against Traore just a month ago.
One can only speculate.
It's all speculation, but if I was a betting man, I'd bet we'll get the documents in a few years.
Right around the time that you pull your Coney 2012 single stitch shirts and your giant hats.
The giant hats, and then the Koran and the AK-47.
You're gonna be a cosmic cowboy? What did you call it?
Cosmic cowboy, a time lord.
A time lord.
Wow, it kind of works, yeah.
You're gonna be
how you got there, actually.
A time that is the look. And everyone, this is again. I said this was an episode where I was just gonna derail you all the fucking time.
Yeah, that's fine. Let's go.
But I think it is a part of the trajectory of everyone who of a certain, let's say, social class type person who moves to LA.
Yeah.
To at some point, they won't do it, but they go on vacation to Palm Springs. They go to the flea market. They buy a fringe suede jacket at the flea market in Palm Springs. They tell people that they've been listening to a lot of Graham Parsons, and they start telling people they're moving to Nashville. They'll never do the last part, but they'll be insufferable about it.
You know what? Yeah, the other day I did see walking down the street a girl in LA, in Lincoln Heights. Cowboy hat, cowboy boots, denim shorts, Stagecoach 2024 hoodie.
Yep.
It's a whole thing.
I'm going to say, do it. Move to Nashville, please.
Give it a shot. See what happens for you.
Yeah.
So, in January of 2023, Traoré expelled the French ambassador from Burkina Faso and was like, this is an imperialist state. You got to get out of here. Remember, had been formerly colonized by France. The next month, in February of 2023, he made the French troops leave Burkina Faso. And this actually did inspire a bunch of other West African countries who had formerly been part of the French Empire to do the same. And those countries include Chad and Niger, right? Remember? So Mali, Chad, Senegal, Niger, and Ivory Coast have all expelled French forces from their lands. So then Emmanuel Macron, do you say Macron or Macron? Macron?
You say Macron?
I only read this stuff. I say words.
Macron.
Yes.
Do you not listen to like the radio?
No, I never listen. I only retain information if I read it. I can't, like, if I hear it, it goes in one ear and out the other. That's why when people are like, how do you not know how to pronounce this? I'm like, I literally can only consume information if it's written.
Oh, I love a radio show.
I can't do a radio show, an audiobook. I'm not paying attention.
Audiobook I can't do. I like that. It's good to fall asleep to, but that's about it.
I'm not retaining it.
But I will say, like, and you roll your eyes every time, like, having your coffee with Democracy Now.
Oh, God, I am rolling my eyes.
Is like
that's the most lib-pilled thing about you, Democracy Now.
It's not NPR.
It's a little better than NPR.
It's
true.
not NPR.
We have so few options.
And like, just as like a comfort thing, it is the coziest way to learn about genocide.
Okay. Well, Macron.
Who age gap relationship?
Is he in an age gap relationship?
His wife is significantly older than him, and
what? France is weird. France is freaky. Okay. Well, he responded by accusing Burkina Faso of ingratitude, and that's a quote.
Yeah.
Wild thing to say. Wild. And then said these countries all, quote, forgot to thank France.
So this is why I think, like, understanding the post-Bretton Woods sort of, like, monetary system is, like, important, because essentially what France had done is had been to use two corporations, I believe, to extract gold and manganese used in the production of steel from Burkina Faso, while forcing dependence on imports into Burkina Faso from France through like monetary arbitrage. Right.
Yes. So also, while this is going on, Traoré then is like, you know what? Western government state-sponsored media outlets? Illegal here. Get the fuck out. And do you know what this includes? Voice of America.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Democracy Now.
No. Voice of America, which you guys listened to our episode about the U.S. Agency for Global Media, it is United States government propaganda. So I think Traoré was correct to be like, get out of here. Also, the BBC, Germany's Deutsche Welle, and this was just last year in 2024. And all these Western organizations are like, how dare you expel our state-sponsored government propaganda networks that are here to demonize your country? Like, hello, I think any sovereign nation has the right to expel fake media organizations created by their political opponents' intelligence communities from its borders. These places are clearly only here to foment dissent, to try to create color revolutions, incite coup attempts. If I had a country, I would 100% get my political enemies who are intent upon conquering my country and subjugating my people. I would get their weird propaganda networks that are used to spread misinformation to try to create fake uprisings out of my country as fast as possible. So props to him for doing that. Totally back that. However, Human Rights Watch, of course, which again frequently cites government propaganda-backed quote-unquote news outlets that are not real, like Voice of America, then accused Burkina Faso of a crackdown on dissent. Which is just shows Human Rights Watch is not impartial. This is a wild thing to do.
Right, like the article that you sent did mention like right, like there are like extremist groups operating within Burkina Faso.
Yeah. We can acknowledge there's some domestic internal.
Oh no, Traoré is like having to deal with at the same time. Like, if you're Traoré and you're like, wow, there was a coup attempt.
Yes.
Right, by some like guys over in the Ivory Coast, like, you're probably gonna want to like, you're like, yes, I would like to tamp down on fucking dissent right now.
Yes, do not stage a coup. Do not do treason.
Please.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And I think in the United States, we would do the same thing.
Well, no, we wouldn't.
Well,
We would pardon that.
oh, maybe, depending on who's president.
Oh.
So also then, Traoré created something called the Alliance of the Sahel States, which is a Pan-African union of states that sees itself as the first step towards, according to this Mint Press News article, a unified anti-imperialist Africa. So how do you think the United States and France feel about that?
Not good.
Not.
No, actually, they're like, wow, the free market decided open borders are fabulous. Let trade circulate freely all throughout Africa.
Yes.
We love that.
We love it.
We are proponents of free trade.
As long as the trade benefits us.
No, we are.
Oh, you think yeah.
We are consistent in our rhetoric.
The free market decides, yeah. No, not exactly what happened. Yeah, the United States and France are fucking losing our shit over this. We're like, no, not another Sankara.
I gotta say,
so we should talk about Thomas Sankara a little bit.
Yeah, I just gotta say, Macron's like, why didn't they thank us thing is such a like.
That is so fucking deranged to say about a country you formerly colonized.
I love that it's, France, because like, recall, France famously made Haiti pay them back.
Yes.
Like it's like France's post-colonial sort of like position has been like, I don't know how it's like like fucking petty asshole.
Yeah.
Like where it's just like the pettiest shit.
Yes. It's totally true. So, all right. So let's talk about Thomas Sankara. So Thomas Sankara had been a revolutionary Burkinabe leader, in like the 60s and 70s and 70s? 70s, 80s. Okay, yeah. So that's it. So he had been a military officer and he did a coup, came to power in his early 30s. And within just 4 years' time, he ended up doing huge reforms to boost the nation's productivity and minimize their reliance on foreign aid. And he said, he who feeds you controls you. And he promoted domestic small-scale agriculture to promote, like, food abundance in the region.
One of Burkina Faso's principal resources, in fact, arable land.
Okay, yeah. So Sankara basically had a socialist revolution. They built social housing, they had health centers, they target literacy, like they did these literacy campaigns. He outlawed forced marriages. He made female genital mutilation illegal. He appointed large numbers of women to high positions of power. And in 1987, he was assassinated. And still today, Thomas Sankara's kind of legacy as a Pan-African kind of leader, a socialist leader, a symbol of what you could do if you pushed back against American imperialism and basically took your countries back from Western control. Not just American, obviously French imperialism too. It really has been inspiring to a number of people, not just in Burkina Faso, not just in Africa, but around the world. Like Thomas Sankara's work is considered seminal if you haven't read it about decolonial struggles. So, he basically was killed by the person who later became the president. And when Traoré came to power, the guy who killed Sankara was convicted in absentia, basically, because he lives in exile on the Ivory Coast now, the guy who killed Sankara. So Traoré does definitely position himself as leading in the legacy of Sankara and that movement.
He wears the same hat.
Yeah. Quite literally, yes. He is also very popular, right? The president of Ghana, for example, said that Traoré attended his inauguration in January and received more applause than anyone, including him. He was like, yeah, the guy came to my inauguration and people were more excited for him than for me. So people are really paying attention to what he's doing. And that is why the United States and the EU are trying to build him up into a big bad character. They have to demonize him because they are afraid that he will be a Pan-Africanist leader, the same way Gaddafi was, the same way Sankara was. So, for example, the types of things that Traoré is doing there, the government emphasized achieving food sovereignty, just like Sankara had. A $1 billion initiative was launched to mechanize agriculture and increase the production of staple crops like rice, corn, potatoes. He also has moves to nationalize the mining industry in whole. We talked about the gold thing already, right? Mm-hmm. Precious metal accounts for over 80% of Burkina Faso's exports, and the country is the world's 13th largest producer of gold. That's around 100 tons per year, so it's around $6 billion per year is the equivalent in like US dollars. So because of the way that the neocolonial model works, that would have all of this gold exported for foreign corporate interests, that means that, the nation doesn't get to benefit from
It's
the natural
extracted. And
resources.
also, Burkina Faso's gold industry was under sort of colonial, neocolonial, however you want to put it, known for its like incredible human rights abuses,
Yes.
including child labor.
Yeah. So the colonial models were the ones doing the child
Yeah.
labor. Yes. So Traore said, why does resource-rich Africa remain the poorest region in the world? The heads of African states should not behave like puppets in the hands of imperialists. And in August of 2024, his government nationalized 2 Western-owned gold mines, which, they were sold for $300 million to these Western-owned owners in 2023. And he nationalized them and only compensated them $80 million for it, which is still a lot of money, but still, you could see why they are mad. So then, in November, we talked about this already, that's when the administration announced the construction of the nation's first gold refinery. So you can see very clearly, if you're familiar with U.S. foreign policy, why this would be very, very disturbing and alarming for Western power, right? We can see why people are so mad here. This means that Burkina Faso, obviously, coup attempt, we just talked about.
Yeah.
AFRICOM stating that they want to get more involved there. They're kind of in a state of conflict. They are in a battle with Islamic groups, actually, who are armed suspiciously very well, that I'm confident the United States probably had a hand in, right? And these are also groups that came to power after NATO's 2011 intervention in Libya, which we talked about in our last episode.
Yeah, that... I almost want to say, but her emails. The U.S. intervention in Libya really was the kicking the hornet's nest of just fucking up everything all throughout Africa.
Yes. Today, for reference, this article says that it's estimated that up to 40% of Libya is in control of Al-Qaeda or ISIS, basically, Islamic State affiliated forces. And over 1,000 people in Burkina Faso lost their lives to those groups in 2024 that came to power because of the United States destabilizing Libya by killing Gaddafi. So Traore has postponed elections that he promised would happen when he came to power. And people are using this to be like, he's a dictator. But he said elections are not the priority. Clearly, security is the priority, which it's hard to argue with given what's going on right now. So kind of, people... The Burkinabe people are right to be like, hey, you promised elections. If they want to be mad about that, that's totally fine. That's an internal matter, again, though, because the thing that they are fighting is foreign destabilization. So it's not our role as the foreign agents who would be destabilizing the region to decide for them if that's okay or not.
I mean, just as a general rule, the United States is not in no country, let's put it this way, no country has ever invaded another country or done military intervention of any kind in another country out of the goodness of their heart.
No.
That's not why you do it. You're not like, wow, we
need to invade this country. I mean, even when you look at the USSR model, right? They try to be like, if you stage a revolution, we will fund it in your country. We will arm it. We will help support you. If you're a communist wanting to do a communist revolution, we're not going to come there and do a revolution for you.
Sometimes they do. Yeah, I mean,
but sometimes I think there was slippage, and I think that Stalin even saw the slippage and was like, okay, we can't do the slippage anymore.
Yeah, there was
taking up too many resources.
Slippage at various points.
Yeah, exactly, which is why I actually... I'm more in favor of the model that Stalin implemented.
No, I mean,
it was okay, we're not focusing on that anymore. That's too much of. I think so. Even looking at that though, you're like, okay, this is not whatever. Yeah. So I think you were correct. So in 2023, for example, there's an example of kind of the types of security that Traore is like, this is the thing we need to focus on. In 2023, in the village of Karma, 150 people were massacred there, and Traore was like, hey, this is bad. This is a problem. But Amnesty International, which is another one of those quote unquote human rights kind of groups that we see constantly citing American CIA propaganda sources, decided to say that it was actually Traore's government who was responsible for the killings, despite there not being evidence of this. So Traore has also started to try to build up a normalized relationship with Russian military advisors. So this obviously is upsetting the United States as well. He's flying to Moscow to attend Russia's Victory Day parade. That just happened on May 9th.
Yeah, that looked fun.
Yeah, and a lot of while the United States is like, oh no, we're losing our grip on China, Africa to China and Russia, seeing somebody in those countries be like, we want to get away from you, we will strengthen our grip, our relationship with Russia and China, is a real threat to the United States. So basically, what this means as Americans that we should be paying attention to is that, look, we know the reasons why the United States has an interest in trying to demonize and vilify Traore. And we don't have to believe that Burkina Faso in its current state is a perfect utopia to say that, hey, we should be skeptical of everything we hear coming from U.S. government sources or affiliated sources, especially about the country, because we know the reasons why the United States wants to do this is to make him into a big bad to justify us killing him like we did with Gaddafi.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you how I usually think about this sort of thing.
Hit me with
which is when it is sometimes, I think, a little misleading to say, like, America does X, America does Y, because it is a specific class of international people.
You're right.
Using the American government and military as an instrument of maintaining an international. God, I sound like
an international cabal.
I mean, no, but really,
it is. This is just capitalism.
Right. And so if you are like a regular American, if you wanted to be hard-nosed and like amoral or whatever, like, you're not getting the fucking Burkina Faso gold, right? Like, it's not like that's like some small portion of that shit's getting deposited into your bank account as like an American.
No.
Right? Like, your identification should be with class, like at a certain point, and like class, like complexly understood, complexly articulated to raise yada yada yada.
Yes,
all the fucking
obviously
things.
Understanding your relationship to colonization and colonialism, but still, it is our duty as Americans not to stand with the American government, not to stand with the American capitalist owning class, but to stand with the people of Burkina Faso who will be massacred, who will have their lives destabilized, who will have their towns and villages destroyed if the United States is allowed to fucking have carte blanche run over the continent of Africa via AFRICOM.
And it's I can't remember, some fucking like one of those early 2000s ass political type punk bands was in their liner notes, but it made sense to my 15-year-old self, and which is like, international capitalism doesn't respect borders. I don't think like the left either. Right, like, don't, like, fuck that. Like,
it's our duty to stand with the people of these places.
That's
yes, yeah, totally. So we're at the 2-hour mark. I have a few points in conclusion to wrap up this episode on. So Glenn Ford says, there is nothing uncharted or mysterious about AFRICOM's mission. The introduction of the 3,000-strong mobile brigade and a network of supporting bases prepares the way for the arrival of a much larger U.S. and NATO force, the recolonization of Africa. And I think that really sums it up perfectly. We are trying to recolonize Africa with our new models of colonization.
Again, we are not.
We are not. The people are not. The government. The government that claims to operate.
Capitalists.
Yeah, and that includes the U.S. government.
That includes the U.S. government as it's like, as a tool.
Yes, correct. Right. And that's important to note, is that under capitalism, the government and business already have such a complex interdependent relationship. And we know that. We know that because we have corporate lobbying in the United States, where these corporations basically buy and sell and trade our politicians as political pawns. We have the revolving door of Congress, where our Congress people literally leave Congress and go then get these high-paying jobs with these companies that we work for. We understand the interdependence of the economy as a general concept and these huge American corporations and how they play into each other. That's why we see things like the too big to fail ideology, where the U.S. government is constantly bailing them out. The idea that business and our government are separate is a fallacy. These corporate capitalists with their kind of global agenda, that is part of our government. We work together. We are one and the same. And when we talk about fascism in particular, the intense marrying of government and business interests, the United States is in a position where we are on track for that. And that's like what capitalism, that's inevitably it seems like the end goal of capitalism is.
I had a professor in undergrad that always joked, it's funny we use the term late stage capitalism because there's something hopeful about it.
Yeah.
And like I was like, and I think about like, I think we're like late stage capitalism seems to just be resolving itself. Well, has always resolved itself into fascism. That's
Yes.
kind of what it does.
That's what it does.
It doesn't. It's not hopeful.
It's not.
It's
So, socialists all across Africa and the United States are calling for the immediate destruction of AFRICOM. The Communist Party of Kenya and the Zimbabwe Communist Party call for the liquidation of AFRICOM and NATO and all aggressive military alliances throughout the world, as well as the removal of all foreign troops from African soil. They proclaim forward with Africa, down with imperialism, in regards to talking about AFRICOM and NATO in this way. In March of 2025, Donald Trump announced possibly getting rid of AFRICOM, kind of maybe. He proposed merging it actually with the European Command into a single command based, again, still in Stuttgart, Germany. But the weird thing is that Trump almost kind of gets rid of things that leftists hate, and then liberals end up thinking that all leftists are right-wingers because we hate the things Trump is trying to get rid of. But it's important to note he's not actually trying to get rid of them. He's just trying to reorganize them in weird ways that help support kind of a consolidation of power. And Democrats, meanwhile, oppose getting rid of AFRICOM, but not because they're good people. As Senator Jean Shaheen of New Hampshire, who is the top Democrat of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and a senior member of the Armed Services, told the Africa Report, that leaves it free for China.
Mm-hmm.
So Democrats are mad about getting rid of AFRICOM because they see that China is somehow going to benefit from this. And this really sums up why the United States is interested in Africa to begin with, right? And what our biggest fear is. We want resources. We don't want China to have them. And I think the best way to wrap this episode up is by talking about the Pan-Africanist revolutionary leader Kwame Nkrumah, who in 1963 spoke at the founding of the Organization of African Unity, where the heads of 31 countries were assembled. And Nkrumah said, the struggle against colonialism does not end with the attainment of national independence. Independence is only the prelude to a new and more involved struggle for the right to conduct our own economic and social affairs, unhampered by crushing and humiliating neo-colonialist controls and interference. Nkrumah pointed out that while African countries strove to fight off colonialism, what emerged in the backlash was, quote, an intense effort on the part of imperialism to continue the exploitation of our resources by creating divisions among us. So I think that kind of sums up why Pan-Africanism is such a pressing topic when facing Western imperialism on the continent, and exactly what the United States is up to in the region. I mean, do you have anything else you want to add before we wrap up our episode on Africa?
No, I do think we should do it at some point, maybe a bonus Patreon thing on Nkrumah because he's fascinating.
Yes.
If the first is tragedy, then as far as yada yada, is it it's not colonialism for African people, for most of the quote unquote global South, a term that I know some people find quite demeaning. It never ended.
Right.
Yeah.
It just was rebranded, and AFRICOM is the extension of us rebranding.
And if you are a Time Lord, get your fucking Coney 2012 t-shirt. I feel like
an ironic Coney 2012 shirt, fashion-wise, very edgelord, very hard.
With the big hat.
The big hat, the Coney shirt.
A fringe jacket.
And the AK-47.
And the AK-47 and a Quran.
That's your look. That's what's going to be happening. 2027. We're ready. 15-year trend.
I think if you do it now,
you're ahead of the curve.
I think people will be this is people will be wow. That hurt. They'll think you're weird at first, but then they'll be whoa.
They're onto something. It's next level. Well, if you want to join us over on Patreon, patreon.com/pickmeup, I'm scared. For $3 a month, you can get access to bonus episodes over there, and sometimes we do fun little text posts. It also helps support our work over on the main episode, which we strive to keep free for you guys. So if you are able to give us your $3 a month, that is very nice. If not, that's okay. We are just happy you're here.